Yes, sir.
Curious of where we at concerning trying to reestablish the Voting Rights Act. Because everything that we're talking about has to be done at the ballot box.
Yeah.
We know off the top from the get when the word first say go, all forms of voter ID is a voter suppression.
Yeah.
So it has to be dealt with at your level in order to get Congress to revisit that. Where are we at on that level?
You're right. Let me just say just a few things before I go at your question directly. One is you should know, and this is very important for everybody in this room, the Constitution of the United States says that qualifications for voters is determined by state. That's why in Maine, if you commit a crime, you never lose your right to vote. But if you commit a crime in, say, Florida, Oklahoma,
So we get it, but
you got to go through a lot of changes. But my point is, several states, I mean, Vermont and Maine, you never lose your right to vote. In other states, you lose it while you're in prison, but you get it when you get out. In other states, you can't get it until you're on probation. In other states, you got to apply. It's all this crazy stuff. And by the way, none of this stuff is about. All this is about is trying to control elections. Photo IDs. You know, it's a lot of the action is on the state level. So in my state of Minnesota, they put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to require a government-issued identification card to vote. We defeated it. When they first introduced it, 80% of the people said, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. I gotta pull out my ID to do this and to do that. Why not?" But then we started explaining it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to exclude a lot of seniors. It's going to exclude a lot of service people serving abroad. They said we got them to say no, and they literally turned it down at the polls. So don't ever think you can't beat stuff like this. At the ballot, it can be beat, and if you guys got to deal with it, I'd love to help you with that. Now let me get right to your question. So as you know, the Supreme Court of the United States struck down the portion of the Voting Rights Act which said that you had to pre-clear. Certain states would have to pre-clear, you know, and if they wanted to make changes to the ballot. So, for example, like, you know, I don't know, is Oklahoma a pre-clearance state? No. Okay. So, like states like Minnesota and Oklahoma, it matters, but it didn't directly affect us. But if you go to Alabama, for example, Texas, then if they were to move the polling place 2 doors down, they'd have to call DC and ask, you know, could they do it? Now these people might say, "Oh, this is unfair. Why do they have to be put through that?" Well, the truth is, they'd be putting the polling booth next to the bar that all the Ku Klux Klan go to. Or one of them there was a case where they put the polling booth in a country club, where, you know, most people aren't members and they don't even know where it is, you know. So, I mean, there's all these cases in a place called, I think it was called Kilmichael County, where the whole case emerges from. They had a case where they had an election, and in the election, the results were that this black guy got elected, and it was going to be half and half. Kilmichael was like, "We will not tolerate this." So before the guy was installed, they discontinued the elections and made the city into like an unincorporated city, you know, so that they can never take office. This is how this thing comes up. So my point is simply that now this is important. Forgive me for taking so much time. In 2006, the Congress took all kinds of testimony, got all kinds of documentations. I mean, reams and reams of paper, lots of testimony saying that yes, it's true. There are some cities and counties that, you know, might not need preclearance anymore, but there's a whole lot that do, and we need to have this. And it was passed, reauthorized, and only like 30 members of Congress of 435.
98-0 in the Senate.
98-0 in the Senate.
390-something to 30-something in the House.
You're exactly. So then the Supreme Court looks at this record just a few years ago and says, "We don't agree," and got rid of it. So this is outrageous. This is an abuse, really. So, but the good news is that John Lewis and a few others have gotten with some of those Republicans who voted for the last Voting Rights Act, and they got a committee, and we're hoping that this can be a bipartisan win. But as you see, we haven't done anything yet. Well, you know what I mean? Nobody is really that hopeful, but here's the problem. A lot of the Republicans who voted to reauthorize the Voting Rights Act, a lot of them are older members, and a lot of them are more what you might call moderate Republicans. And a lot of the newer, younger guys who are more extreme, the Tea Party people, they don't want any part of it. So we're in a tough spot. We may need an election to fix this problem. But you can bet, if we get the election results we need, we will fix the problem within a month.
I asked that question for a reason.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that question was because the Supreme Court stepped out of their lane when they did what they did.
Sure did.
Those are decisions that Congress is supposed to have authority over.
Yep.
And the Supreme Court will always step out of line if Congress does not hold them accountable.
Yep.
So it's left up to you all to put the pressure on
right.
them in order to make that happen. We can't do it over here. It has to be done at the legislative level.
No, you're right about that. But so here's the thing, though. The Supreme Court gets to decide what's constitutional and what isn't. The Congress can't. I mean, you sound like you're a lawyer. Are you one?
I'm familiar with the case.
Well, in our system, the Supreme Court decides what's constitutional and what isn't. And so you know that when they struck that law, if you just repassed what was already there, they would say, we told you it was unconstitutional. So as long as you got this configuration of the court, or as long as you don't make some changes to the underlying law, you got a real problem. Now, what I can tell you, though, is this. And here's the fact that you know, but maybe others may not. People get off the preclearance list all the time. They let counties off if they haven't had a history of discrimination in a few years. So they get off. It's not like it's not like a lifetime sentence, which is one of the surprising things about the Supreme Court's position, because it's like, wait a minute, the law's working. Counties that are doing the right thing are getting off. Counties that are doing the wrong thing are staying on, and they should. So it really is shocking. And I want to agree with you. You're absolutely right. But right now, where we're at is we got a Republican majority. Some of them are interested in working with us to fix it. Others of them are not. And we will see where we get. And you can bet it will be an election issue. So thanks. You want to add anything else on there?
It boils down to what they've done was states' rights over.
When's the last time you heard that? Oh my
States' rights over Voters' Rights Act, and so
Yeah.
anything less than in the courts, we're not going to be able to resolve it.
Well, with a new election, we might be able to. And we also should know that the next president is really important, because you're going to have a lot of appointments. So I bet you'd agree with that.
And the reason that they had to preclearance is because we've always had the right to vote, but if you got a reputation and a track record for discriminating, then that's the reason you need to be pre-cleared.
That's it.
I mean, it ain't based on nothing else other than this is what you've been doing, and this is what you continue to do. So you got to get permission to do anything beyond what you're going to do.
Thanks a lot. Let's go to the young man in the yellow.